The rain outside beat against the glass windows of the towering skyscraper, each drop echoing like the pounding of an anxious heart. And in that moment, the CEO, Daniel Hayes, the millionaire everyone feared and respected, had no idea his morning would change forever. Because just as he adjusted his tie and turned toward the mountain of files on his desk, the heavy doors of his office opened with a creak that did not belong in a place of wealth and power. And there stood a little girl, barely 8 years old, her shoes muddy, her hair tied messily with a worn ribbon, her small hands clutching a folder much too big for her fragile arms, and with trembling lips she said softly, almost apologetically, "Mom's sick, so I came instead." Daniel froze, for he was used to board members, shareholders, and ambitious adults walking through those doors, but never a child who looked so determined yet so close to tears. And as she stepped closer, he noticed how her dress, though clean, was faded, and how her eyes held both fear and a spark of courage, a mixture he had not seen since he himself was a boy left alone in the world after his father's death. "Who are you?" Daniel asked, his voice low, trying to balance authority with curiosity, and she placed the folder on his polished desk, her fingers lingering on its edge as if letting go meant failing her mission, and she whispered, "My name's Lily. My mom was supposed to come today. She applied for the cleaning contract, but she couldn't get up this morning. She said work was too important, so I came instead. I don't want her to lose this chance." Her words cut deeper than she knew, for Daniel's empire was built on contracts and deals, but never had one been delivered with such innocent desperation. And as he opened the folder, filled with carefully written applications and notes scribbled in her mother's handwriting, his chest tightened because behind every paper was a story, and in this child's eyes was a life hanging on the edge. He cleared his throat, forcing himself back into the role of the ruthless CEO everyone expected. Yet something about the way her voice cracked when she added, "She said we need this, because medicine costs a lot," broke the armor he wore for years. "Do you even know what this contract means?" he asked, more to test her resolve than out of real doubt. And Lily nodded, her chin lifting proudly despite her small frame, and she explained how her mother had worked late nights cleaning offices, saving every coin, dreaming of securing a permanent position that would pay enough to keep food on the table and buy the medicine she needed for her illness. Each word felt rehearsed, but Daniel could tell they weren't lines taught by an adult. They were truths a child had absorbed from years of watching her mother struggle in silence. He remembered his own mother once standing in front of a landlord, pleading for just one more week to pay the rent, and suddenly the office's luxury felt suffocating, as if his success had isolated him from the raw struggles of those who made his building shine. He leaned back in his chair studying her and asked softly, "And what about school? Shouldn't you be there instead of here?" For the first time her eyes dropped, and she murmured, "I'll catch up later. Right now this is more important." The weight in her voice belonged to someone far older than 8, someone who had learned responsibility too soon, and Daniel felt a sting of guilt, wondering if his relentless climb for wealth had blinded him to the innocence of childhood stolen by hardship. The challenge before him was more than business. It was a moral test, one that money couldn't easily solve because helping her outright might seem like charity, and charity often stripped people of their dignity, something he swore he would never take away again after his own humiliations in youth. But turning her away, treating her as just another distraction, would crush the fragile hope she carried for her mother. So he decided to probe further, asking, "Why do you think I should choose your mom over the others?" "There are many applicants." Her eyes shimmered, and with a trembling smile she said, "Because she won't just clean your office. She'll take care of it like it's our home. She told me once, even if people don't notice, doing something with love makes the world brighter. She never stops even when she's tired. Please give her this chance. I promise you won't regret it." Daniel swallowed hard, because those words carried the kind of truth he had buried beneath contracts and profits. And in that moment he saw not just a desperate child, but a reflection of what loyalty and perseverance really meant. Still, the road to resolution was not simple. His board was already pressuring him to cut costs, outsource labor, and replace human effort with machines, and approving this contract would go against their recommendations. When he mentioned Lily's visit later in the day, his executives scoffed, calling it emotional manipulation and irrelevant to business. Their arguments echoed the cold logic of success, but Daniel couldn't shake the image of Lily standing bravely in his office, her tiny fists clenched as if she could fight the world alone. For the first time in years, he felt torn between protecting his company's numbers and protecting something far more fragile, a child's faith that goodness still mattered. That night he drove home restless, passing by neighborhoods he had long ignored, where flickering streetlights revealed children playing barefoot on cracked pavements, and he realized how far he had drifted from the world that had once shaped him. The following morning, when Lily appeared again, this time with her mother leaning weakly on her side, Daniel knew the decision could no longer wait. Her mother's face was pale, her hands trembling, but her eyes carried the same quiet dignity Daniel remembered in his own mother's eyes when she worked 2 jobs to keep him alive. She apologized for sending her daughter in her place, explaining between coughs how she couldn't bear to lose the opportunity. Daniel interrupted gently. "You raised a daughter brave enough to walk into a CEO's office alone. That tells me everything I need to know about your strength." Silence filled the room, broken only when Lily clutched her mother's hand tightly, whispering, "See? I told you he'd understand." Daniel made his choice then, not just to approve the contract, but to ensure she received medical support from the company's health program, something she never imagined would be offered to a cleaning staff. The executives protested, but Daniel stood firm, declaring, "This company was built by people like her, people who give their best even when no one's watching. If we forget that, we forget why we exist." It was not just a business decision. It was redemption for the boy inside him who once needed someone to believe in his worth. As weeks passed, Lily's mother began working with pride, her health slowly improving with proper treatment, and Lily often visited after school, bringing drawings she taped on Daniel's office wall, turning his once cold space into something warmer. The millionaire, known for his ruthless efficiency, became a man who paused meetings to listen when Lily described her school projects or when she shyly asked if he had ever been scared as a child. Each time he shared pieces of his story, and in return, she reminded him of the courage it took not to give up. The challenge of balancing business demands with compassion remained. But Daniel found strength in the very lesson Lily had unknowingly taught him, that true success was not measured by profits alone, but by the lives uplifted along the way. And so when people asked why the CEO suddenly seemed different, kinder, more grounded, he simply smiled and thought back to the day a little girl walked into his office with muddy shoes and said, "Mom's sick, so I came instead," and he knew the truth. She had walked in not just to save her mother, but to save him too. By the end of that year, Daniel launched a new initiative to support employees' families, offering scholarships for children and healthcare for parents. And when asked where the idea came from, he looked at Lily sitting proudly beside her mother in the front row of the announcement and said, "Sometimes the greatest lessons come from the smallest voices." And as applause filled the room, Lily's smile shone brighter than the city skyline outside. Proof that kindness had the power to transform not just a company, but a heart that had once forgotten how to feel.